Hello and welcome to episode 464 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And a man who never repeats himself. I'll say again, he never repeats himself. It's Tony Esmond.
Hi.
What are you going to do? I'll go and get the papers.
What Tony's done there, he's done it's a spot-on impersonation of someone professional.
That's going to fucking stop right away.
There we go. He's not a method actor. He's already broken character immediately. Welcome to the show, everyone. We've got a brilliant, fun one for you today.
What a nice dude. What a fucking nice dude.
We are so high off the chat we just had. And you're going to be hearing about all kinds of things, like from comics, superheroes, parody. Oh, by the way, I've put another clickbaity title. So if you're expecting us to absolutely rip on superheroes, you're not going to get that. But you're going to get some great,
we've done you up.
Yeah, comedy superhero chat. With
you fool! Why are you here?
but please stick along for the rest of the show, please. We really appreciate it. But no, we talked to a creator who has jumped on our radar in a big way with Steamroller Man. So much so that Dan Butcher, wow. Well, we'll talk about where he is on the Kickstarter page a bit later, but we were talking to Matthew Schofield, who was awesome, and I think a lot of you people are going to be pledging to that Kickstarter and checking out Steamroller Man after this. But because you're probably, as you're listening to this, thinking, I want more comics to read. Where can I get more comics to read? Well, I think Dan and Tony will agree with me that they should go to Global Comics. Do you think?
Yes, yeah.
It's a good place to go.
Yeah,
they can read the aforementioned Steamroller Man in there as well.
Exactly. It's a tie-in. I don't know why I sang that bit. But if you go to Global Comics...
New York City.
New York City.
New York City.
But if you go to Global Comics, you'll see that there is hundreds of titles on Global Comics. They've got an enormous library that's growing all the time. There's thousands of indie creators, hundreds of publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, Dynamite Comics, TKO Studios, Source Point Press, Mad Cave Comics, Humanoids, to name a few. The catalogue's still growing. They've just added, basically a metric, pardon my French, fuck ton of Vault comics on there. So there's lots of titles, of course, from Vault that we've mentioned over the past few years. They've been mentioned on the show quite a bit, Vault. So if you've been wanting to check out some of those titles, now's the time to do it. But chaps, what have you seen on the Global Comics?
Well, mine's a Vault. I was going to suggest a Vault comic, but I know it's Vince. You're a big fan of stories in space, aren't you?
Yes.
And you're also a big fan of hardcore pornography.
Yeah.
Why not read Money Shot? Christina Ocampo, inventor of the Starshot teleportation device, has a big idea. She'll travel to new worlds, engage intimately with local aliens, and film her exploits for a jaded Earth population. How's that for a story idea?
It's a great idea. It was also it was recommended on the show a few years back.
Got to be a couple of years ago, isn't it?
A few years, 3 or 4 years. So if you want to catch up on it, and if you want to get a load of that, if you want to just put Money Shot in your face
or in your eye,
or in your eyes, just put it all in your eyes.
Oh,
sometimes it does go in your eyes, as we historically know from the show.
Yeah. So then Global Comics is a place for you. What about you, Dan?
It's AAPI Heritage Month, which celebrate Asian, American, and Pacific Island creators. That's what it means, Tony. And you can read books like Red Light, Monstrous, Man's Best Friend, Lock Salt Village, Robust Heat, Fight Girls, Infidel, and many more on Global Comics as they celebrate Asian, American, and Pacific Islander creators.
Fight Girls, that's good.
Yeah. Amazing creators on there. So yeah,
I've just added that Monstrous to my read list because that looks ace.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's good.
See, and that's what you can do if you've got reading lists. You can add books onto these lists and libraries to read later. I mean, I've got a shit ton that I've got to work through.
There's a comic on there called "Hello, My Name Is Poop."
Yeah,
there's too many jokes. I got too many jokes. Are you going to be reading that, Tony? Is that your recommend? Spoilers for the rest of the show. But you can, as we said, there's reading lists. You can follow creators, set reading status filters, release notifications for your books that you're looking forward to checking out in the future. There are tie-ins to the sort of. It's almost like a on digital pull list. You're getting notified of like the digital books that you read, aren't you?
Yeah, get emails. Oh, there's another book added to the your reading list. Let's go. Good.
And if you happen to be a creator yourself, you can publish your digital comics for free. They offer loads of great tools for indie creators to help with publishing, marketing, and more. So if you're an avid comics reader or follower like us, or maybe a creator, or maybe you're just someone new to the hobby, if you're new to the hobby and you're starting with this show, we're sorry.
It is a lot better.
Right.
We apologise. Yeah, we apologise for us. Trust us, new listener. The people we have on the show are absolute gold. So just ignore
most of them.
Yeah, but you won't want to ignore Global Comics. So go to globalcomics.com. That's comics with an X. You can download the app now on the Apple App Store or Google Play, and you can start reading and publishing digital comics like never before. I tell you what, every time we get through
smash that.
I'm just constantly proud of us now. I'm constantly proud of us now.
Went all right, that one.
Yeah.
We did mention jizzing in people's eyes, but I think that went all right.
That
might slip by that one.
It's not the worst off-road we've gone from a sponsorship ad.
No,
I think one time we had a 10-minute conversation and then I
we went on a
segued
massive
back
tangent.
into the sponsorship ad in the past.
I forget we're in it sometimes.
But to be fair, for me, that's a 10-minute advert.
Yeah.
It's not a 10 minutes.
They pay us twice.
No.
If you do the intro bit and the outro bit and everything in between that is the advert. So if we did it at the end of the show, that'd be like an hour and a half, 2 hour advert, which
They'd have to pay us 100 times.
Wow.
So next week we'll talk about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, we got to talk about. Hang on. I tell you what. Should we ever talk about that now? Because we'll sort out the business. We'll sort out the financials, everything. We'll get our people to call other people's people. But while we're doing that,
calling no one.
I tell you, while we're doing that, you lovely listeners are going to be inspired and you're going to have fun with this amazing chat with Matthew Schofield.
Let's roll.
Okay, this week we're very pleased to be joined by an artist and animator who has not only directed episodes of The Simpsons, but he's also the creator of the awesome superhero comedy book Steamroller Man, a book that we've talked about many times on this show. Welcome to the show, Matthew Schofield.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you all.
That's a very polite hello. Bear in mind, we've just been raucous for about 20 minutes.
I didn't know whether we were
that's fine.
giving the audience a peek behind the curtain or whether we've never met.
Finally,
this
Matthew, a guest who understands. Tony Complete, he doesn't understand.
No, I don't understand all that.
There is no curtain.
I'm the real me.
This is everything that goes on.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Good to know going forward.
Yes. It's just going to be chaos from here on out. But thank you for joining us. Now, we've discussed Steamroller Man many times on the show.
Yes, and thank you. I'm so flattered that you guys kind of picked up on it and from Global Comics and praised
we dug
it.
it.
Like
That's awesome.
Real thrill to hear you guys talk about it. So thanks very much.
It's great pleasure, man. And the Kickstarter, the current Kickstarter you've got, has smashed its target. So congrats.
Thanks
for that.
Yeah, completely unexpected. I didn't expect it to go as well as it's going.
We expected it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. The quality sings out, and I've seen the campaign and before it launched, and I was like, yeah, this is going to do well. And
thanks.
Yeah.
So
how often are you looking at it, Matt? You looking at it every hour, or have you controlled yourself?
It's weird because this is my first Kickstarter campaign, and I'd heard from people who have done done a campaign before, like, I'm hitting refresh like every couple of minutes, and
obsessive compulsive
that's
madness.
Silly, but you do. Like, I check the page every morning after I wake up, and I check it every night before I go to bed, and then multiple times during the day. I'm just like, I wonder if anyone else has pledged. So you do get into that kind of
once it meets that mark of like, you covered your bases, you covered costs, you're like, okay, that's a bit of pressure off now, and you can kind of just
exactly.
But before then, you're kind of like, oh.
Right. Well, fortunately, in this case, which, as I said, I wasn't expecting at all, but I set the goal deliberately low just to give myself the best chance of succeeding, because it's all or nothing on Kickstarter, as you guys know.
Yeah.
And so I set the goal at 750 because I thought, well, that's the bare minimum that I can raise to cover the costs of like a very small print run. And then it hit that goal within the first 40 minutes of being live. And so I was like, oh my God, wow.
Awesome.
And then by the end of the first day, it was already almost like 4 times that. So
there you go.
Fantastic.
Like, oh my God, this is amazing.
You sit back and enjoy it then, can't you, a little bit more?
Yeah, so then it's just grown and grown. So
and the book's all done
really well,
isn't it? So there's no kind of real waiting for the people who backed it to get the comic.
No, that was the other thing. I always intended to get Steamroller Man into print, but I wanted to make sure that I had a big, just hit my microphone. I wanted to make sure I had a big like lead of completed work before I even thought about launching a Kickstarter, because I had backed Kickstarters before. Like there's one that I backed like a year and a half ago that they're still doing updates of like we're not quite done yet, and it's like
and that's
a year and a half
compared to some. There's that's not too bad. Yeah, some are like 5.
I think we've all got our war stories there. Waiting for stuff.
So I wanted to just make sure that like I had every chance of fulfilling the campaign as quickly as possible, just because from the backer's point of view, I knew that I preferred campaigns that the product was already done and it was just a matter of we're just going to send it to the printer, and as soon as we get them back, we're sending them out to you. And so I wanted to do it like that.
It's almost like
the best.
We talk about make the comic you want to read. It's also a case of run the Kickstarter that you would pledge to. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point.
I guess so. I think it's just a matter of like you go based on your own experience and what do I like and what do I not like about that experience, and you try and just take that as a roadmap to doing it yourself, which is similar to how I went about doing Steamroller Man in the creation of it as well.
Yeah, which is a wonder. Oh, we've got
what a great segue.
Segue. Yeah. So to kick us off, because obviously, and we'll probably get into the weeds of Kickstarter a little bit more as well, but the book itself, and you as a creator, what led you? Well, it's a bit of a 2-part question, really. What led you to start your sort of first comic, and why did you choose to make it like a parody superhero book?
Well, I've been reading comics continuously, collecting comics continuously since I was 13. And very soon after I started collecting back in the 80s, late 80s, I think every long-term comic reader hits that point where they start to notice like, oh, there's this comic is drawn by the same artist. I like this artist, and you realize, oh, there's people who make this, make these things for a living. And so I'd wanted to make my own comic since I was a kid, and that sort of led me to follow the career path that I did into animation, because when I was looking for like a university course after high school, I wanted, if there had been like a comics making course in Australia, I would have done that, but there wasn't. There was, however, an animation course, and so I just sort of applied to that because it was the closest thing I could find to doing comics, and so that sort of, charted my career path. But I'd always sort of in the back of my mind thought, I want to do my own comic one day. Yeah, one day. And so I eventually got to a point, like you grow up and you start working, and then, I'm married. I've got 2 kids. And so when the kids were little, that sort of saps all your time, and your energy. Like I really didn't have the bandwidth to start my own comic once the kids came along. And it wasn't until they were a little bit older that I found, okay, I've got a bit of free time now. And by that point, I was also, this sounds very morbid, but I was becoming more aware of my own mortality.
Right.
Okay. And I was like, if I want to do a comic, I just got to dive in and do it.
Yeah.
And it's now or never. And so I just started. Steamroller Man was actually created based on a conversation I had with my kids around the dinner table, where they were we were coming up with like cool superhero names, and my youngest son said, "What about Steamroller Man?" And cool. That sort of like a light bulb went off over my head, and I had immediately in my mind the image of what he looks like, which is a guy with a huge steel roller for a head. And so I drew it on a napkin and I showed my son, and he was like, "No, I meant steamrollers for hands." And so I was like, no, well, my version of Steamroller Man is this guy with the big roller for a head. And so the more I thought about that,
what he did, just send your kid to his room for being stupid at that point.
Very stupid. Get him room.
So the more I thought about that kind of visual, I like, I just liked the visual of it. And so then it was very soon after that I had that kind of moment of like, I'm just going to start doing my comic. And I think every creator has this idea for like their big magnum opus epic story in their head. And I do too. And it's not Steamroller Man. Steamroller Man was initially just this throwaway idea that I was like, well, I've never done a comic before. I don't know how long it takes. So this is just going to be something I'm going to do for fun as a warm up.
Yeah.
And
it's taking you over.
Yeah. And it sort of took over because I just had more and more ideas as I started doing it. I just got more and more ideas of like what I could do with the character, and ideas for jokes and stuff just seemed to just flow as I was drawing it. So yeah, that's how I started.
If you don't mind rewinding a little bit, Matt. Sure. As a teenager in Brisbane, what was the comic scene like there? What I'm stupidly unaware of any sort of homemade Australian. Was there much there?
It's very similar to what I've heard you guys describe in England back in the day in the end of the last century, which sounds weird to say, but but yeah, it was like I didn't know that comic shops existed until I was about 15, and there was only one comic shop. So I got and that was in the center of the city, and I lived in the suburbs. So you had to get a bus or a train to get into the city. So I got most of my comics from the local newsagent, and also there was a book exchange, which I don't know, it's like secondhand bookstores don't seem to exist as much anymore. I don't know where all the secondhand books go now, but they don't go to secondhand book. Yeah, exactly. So, so I used to go to, I'd ride my bike down to the local newsagent, and I'd ride my bike to the book exchange, and that's where I got my comics. So it wasn't, it was a bit hit or miss.
So was it American comics, or was it British comics, or what?
It was a mix of American and British, which was great, because I feel like I got like a very well-rounded sort of grounding in comics, because we had, of course, 2000 AD, but also I picked up, I wasn't a real regular reader of the British comics or American comics in those days, because it was just sort of like catch as catch can in terms of what you would find on the shelf. It wasn't like, they have X-Men every month, because they only stocked like a few issues of each title. It was like
that with us.
If those were gone, they were gone, and you were just out of luck. So,
but is there an Aussie scene? Is there an Aussie, even an underground scene?
There is now. There's a huge. I'm just amazed at how many independent Australian creators are producing comics now.
Okay.
Compared to when I was growing up, where for the first few years that I was collecting, I didn't see any Australian comics, and then every so often you would see just one comic that was produced by an Australian. the only other thing we had was Phantom comics, which were actually not drawn by Australians, but they were sort of reprints of the Phantom like newspaper comics, but they were collected by an Australian publishing company. So that was definitely like
the Phantom was a big character out there as well, much more than the Deer, I think.
Very much so. Phantom's hugely popular in Australia. And so that was like, that's the only like regular fixture on Australian newsagent stands back then, was like you could it was really dependable, like you could always find a Phantom comic,
right?
But yeah, I was into Marvel and DC. I started collecting around the time of 1986, 1987.
Massively great period.
So one of the first comics that I remember collecting was the Giffen DeMatteis, Kevin Maguire Justice League run, which was also really influential on my taste in comics because of the comedic thing. Like I really love comedic takes on superheroes.
I got it just right as well. That was
It was fantastic. And it was sort of mind-blowing at the time because I'd never really seen, or really, like, I guess I wasn't really attuned to the sensibility of superhero comics that injected an element of comedy into it. Even though I sort of think, like, when you look back at Marvel comics of the 70s and stuff, there was almost like a joyfully absurdist streak in some of that stuff.
There's a Howard
the Duck.
Tongue-in-cheek stuff. Yeah, exactly. Howard the Duck. But also, like you just I love the Marvel comics of the 70s are just so fun to just look back on because it was sort of like drawing on everything that was in pop culture in the 70s. So you had like horror, because The Exorcist was huge in the 70s. So there was all these characters from hell, like Son of Satan and Ghost Rider
Satana,
and stuff. And then they had like trucker culture as well. Was big in the 70s, and Evil Knievel, like the motorbike thing,
Human Fly,
and they were just exactly. So they were just throwing all that stuff in,
and then you got LSD obviously in the mix.
Yep. So yeah, they're really entertaining to look back on, and that's also something that like really influenced Steamroller Man, just in terms of like I just want it to sort of feel like that. That kind of Gonzo sort of craziness of like, I love characters with big heads, just visually, just the visual.
It's great.
Yeah. Did many of them have a musical scene though?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. I can't think of a comic I've read where they have like a musical kind of like dance number, like kind of.
It's almost like Mr. Impossible or something like that. That's the sort of. Or like I know we were talking a little bit about the Tick and Paul the Samurai and all this sort of thing. You can see there's a bit in that somewhere there as well. Ambush Bug, maybe. Yeah,
that's the funny thing. So many people have told me about Ambush Bug, but I've never actually read an issue. But I keep, people tell me like, "Oh, you'd really like it." I'm surprised you haven't read Ambush Bug, and it just wasn't something that sort of crossed my radar back at the time that it was originally published, and so I've just never sort of bothered.
It's hard to find now. I can't
seek it out.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I never sort of read any Ambush Bug, but Ambush Bug, as I know now, is the pre-Deadpool Deadpool. Do you know what I mean?
Massively.
Sort of,
looms large.
Breaking the fourth wall, and he's aware he's in a comic book and stuff like that.
The whole Steamroller Man thing when he's like in his Clark Kent persona, and he's like just got the massive steamroller head with the glasses, and
I didn't recognize who it was.
I was like, this is fucking gold. It's so good.
Oh, good.
Just brazenly walking down the pavement with these massive glasses on.
That was pretty much the first gag that I came up with for Steamroller Man, because when you've got this character with a huge head, the first thing that I thought of was like, oh, well, how would he have a secret identity if he's got this huge head?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it would be funny if he thinks like just putting on a pair of glasses and that does it. Like now I'm disguised and no one's going to know. And when I started to first draw it, I initially drew little, glasses that fit his eyes in a sort of more realistic way.
Yeah.
But the earpieces, because he doesn't have ears, but I kind of treat the axles on either side of his head as his ears. And so I was like, well, how is he going to, like, you can't have the glasses like stick to his face. And so then I thought, well, what if they're actually huge glasses, which then magnify his eyes to.
There's a little bit of the two Ronnies about that as well.
The two Ronnies.
The two Ronnies. Oh my God. Nice reference.
I told you, ideas machine, Matt. There you see.
Good night for me, and it's good night for him.
So when you're kind of writing Steamroller Man, it's like when you're like working in the gags. So you've got like, right, here's the plot. Do you have a gag count? Like, well, I've got to get 1 / 2, 3 jokes on each page. How does that? How do you work that through?
Yeah, I do actually. Because I initially was publishing it and still am publishing it as a webcomic. Because I just wanted to get the ideas out there as quickly as possible. And so I decided, like, I'm just going to put a page online. Initially, I was trying to like keep to a bi-weekly schedule. Which I've since dropped because I just don't have time. So it's just now it's just like whenever a page is done, I just post it. But yeah, because I was posting a page every 2 weeks, and I was conscious that whoever's going to be reading it, you only get that one page, and then you got to wait. Yeah. And so I wanted to give people sort of a satisfying experience from reading that page, and so that was sort of the mandate that I put upon myself was I want to have a joke on every page. Like every page is essentially a gag that will still work together in terms of like the overall story, but every page is about this gag or sometimes because of the way the story has to continue and flow, a page just becomes a story point, but more often than not, I'm coming up with at least one gag, and some, like if there's more that sort of spring to mind as I'm writing the jokes, then I just throw them in as well.
Yeah, I mean, is that a combination of what you've learned in comics and in, say, The Simpsons? Is there a little bit of both in there sometimes? You and I both know that stuff like Paul the Samurai and The Tick and all these books have that gag count, but I guess The Simpsons does as well. Is it a little bit of both, or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely The Simpsons. Having worked on The Simpsons for so long, it definitely has given me a sense and an awareness of like how jokes work and how to make them play. So I think that's definitely benefited me in terms of just how I stage the jokes. It's obviously different from a moving animated image, and the difference with a static image that doesn't have sound in a comic, but there's still similarities in terms of like setting up the joke and paying off the joke with a punchline. And comedy also, a lot of gags work because you establish a rhythm, like that's the comedy rule of 3 is like a kind of cliched phrase in writing where you say two normal things, and then the third thing is like that's the punchline, and that sort of breaks the rhythm.
Okay.
So it's just stuff like that definitely like informs how I'm writing the jokes. But a lot of it is also just like puns and wordplay. Like I love wordplay and all that sort of stuff. So it's just me kind of having fun and thinking like, oh, it'd be funny to do this. And that's how the whole musical number came about. Because I don't write the jokes in advance. I work from an outline, and then I do my thumbnails, and it's in the thumbnailing part that I'm starting to think, oh, okay, I could make the joke on this page this. And then I'm refining the dialogue all the way through from thumbnails to final inked page and lettered page, like, because the wording of it, like, is also important to the comedy as well. Like, I'm trying to get just the right way to say,
of course,
the lines.
Do you find that it's interesting that you're an Australian now working in Hollywood? Is there a little bit of the stick? Cause you fuckers are cynical bastards in Australia, worse than we are. Is there a little bit of the looking at Hollywood in there? Is a little bit, is it kind of the outsider looking in a bit, which you need for comedy, sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be completely honest, not to be negative about current, not so much Hollywood, but the comics industry, which I'm a total outsider to. Like, I've never worked in comics, but I've been a long time reader and observer of the comics industry. And so there was definitely an element when I first started the comic. And I guess, it does come back to Hollywood, because when I started the comic and like I was designing the character and refining his design, I kind of was a bit thumbing my nose at the way that Hollywood had adopted this sort of attitude towards comic book adaptations of we got to make it real, we got to make it realistic, and then that became like a tail wagging the dog, which worked its way back into the comics themselves, and I really kind of didn't like that. I think it's better if the comics are the imaginative engine that is informing the movies, not the other way around, because I think that's actually limiting to the comic medium.
Yeah. And so doing it the other way around gives it that, because there's a definitive underground feel to Steamroller Man as well. It's got, it's easy. I could have found it in a Fantagraphics book, for example.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah,
I think one of the things I love about
high praise.
Yeah, one of the great things about it, and like all great parodies, you read it when you hear the word parody. Sometimes it can like instill fear in your heart, because you think, "Is this going to be ripping it out of the thing I love?" But great parodies,
or going far enough, sometimes.
Great parodies are clearly, oh no, they love this. This is just a funny version of the thing that they love.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, that's where Steamroller is coming from, a place of loving comics, but it's loving the whimsicality and the slightly absurd nature of comics, which I think has been lost in modern comics, where it is sort of like, no, we got to make this realistic. We got to make it real. Yeah. And, of course, there's still there's still a few comics that are being done with that kind of whimsical feel to them, but I don't think there's enough of them, frankly.
When we do go back to some of those older ones, and it's just like, man, this is crazy. It's like Batman goes back to the Civil War or something, and you're like,
exactly. They fit so much into every page. Do you know what I mean? All the issues are absolutely
exactly.
stacked.
Right. Yeah. So that was certainly a reaction that I was that was informing what I wanted to do with Steamroller Man, as I was starting to really kind of bring it together and think, I can make a whole comic out of this, rather than just doing like a gag, to amuse myself and my kids. Once I started thinking like, I can tell a whole story, I was like, well, I want it to be something that would not be easily adapted to live action. That's why his face on the roller is essentially a graphic cheat. Because it doesn't map to the curve. It's just drawn on the blank space.
Which is what you can do in comics. You can do it anywhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I was going for. Was I want to do a comic that can only be done as a comic, not easily translate. I mean, I'm sure they could find a way. But it's it's in its purest form as a comic.
In all due respect, probably a shit way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if they made an action figure of Steamroller Man, you'd have to think about that.
Oh, I'd buy the shit out of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially,
here we go.
If he's...
Here we go. What's this?
On a second.
Oh God, we're seeing that.
Speaking of which, so I have a friend who I went to college with who does action figure custom action figures.
I love seeing people
in his spare time, and so he
that's awesome.
He made me one.
That's fantastic.
That looks like a Thomas the Tank Engine face.
It is. It is a Thomas the Tank Engine face. Good pickup. That's exactly what it is. No one's ever identified it before. I was just about to say this face is. I think it's like Gerald from Thomas the Tank Engine or something.
That's fantastic.
But yeah. So
I want a T-shirt of that as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Does the head actually roll? Does it slightly?
Yeah, it looks like it rolls. Yeah,
it turns. I mean, he can't get his face past his axle, but it rolls. So
it'd be no good if you wanted to paint your living room or something like that. But
there's a plot point.
Brilliant.
So my friend just sent that to me out of the blue, saying like, "Oh, your comic has inspired me so much. Here's a gift."
Oh, that's awesome.
It was fantastic. I love that. So and that inspired me. Just because it's sort of when you get a sense that my work has touched somebody.
You put it out there and you don't know what is happening, right? Do you?
Exactly.
You kind of shout it into the void, didn't you? So getting that feedback.
Any sort of like fan interaction or fan art or anything like that, or someone who's read it who responds to the work, is such a jolt of energy, isn't it, and inspiration.
Apart from us, rocket fuel.
Apart from us, when people say they've listened and we sort of have to apologise.
Yeah, we
that's where we go with it.
That's a given. Yeah.
But speaking of inspiration, though, Steamroller Man, amazing. Love him. Love him. The musicality of him.
Thank you.
I want to know. Every good hero needs a good villain. And so I want to know about Fancy Dandy and the gingerbread golem.
Right.
So where the hell did this come from?
So that was based on another conversation with my kids, and another idea that my son had was like a man made of cookie, and I was like, well, what if it was a giant gingerbread man? And so then like my story wheels in my mind start turning of like, okay, well, what could that be?
So the notebook comes out and you're like, yes. What other ideas have you got? And you just write them down.
No, it's
get the whiteboard out.
Little kids are great because they're unfiltered and they don't second guess their ideas, and so you're just getting pure imagination. And so it was wonderful when my kids were younger and they were just like coming up with ideas. And then I also like, I don't know whether you guys ever read that comic Axe Cop, which was which was
based on, was it his brothers or his son?
Written, his little brother, who was 6 at the time, I think, just coming up with like these ideas, and then the older brother, who was a comic artist, would make it into a story and draw the whole thing. And so I was sort of inspired by that example as well. So Sugar Daddy came from I basically thought, what if it's like an evil Willy Wonka type of character who he's an adept practitioner of candymancy, which is occult the art of occult confectionery. And that was inspired by back when Legends of the Dark Knight, the comic, originally was published. Grant Morrison and Klaus Janson did an arc called Gothic. And I remember Grant Morrison giving an interview where they talked about, I was studying occult architecture. And so I put occult architecture, that became like a central plot point in this story. And, just reading that interview in the back of a comic when I was, I don't know, maybe 11th grade or something back then. I was like, what the hell's occult architecture? What is that? Sounds really cool, though.
Yeah.
And so that sort of, just came to mind. And I was like, well, if there's occult architecture, why can't there be occult confectionery? Yeah. And so I just thought, oh, that's a cool idea. Like, what if he's a candy maker, but he uses a magic, he uses the candy as elements in doing magic. And so then that became, okay, so the gingerbread man, he's a giant gingerbread man and he's like a golem, from Jewish folklore. The golem is usually made of clay and they put a word of power on his head. And so I thought, oh, well, that would be fun if the word of power is actually one of those conversation heart candies.
Yeah,
that's where I thought there was a bit
Valentine's Day.
There was a bit of sort of Carpenter-esque. They live on that. Was there the obey? I just kind of sensed there was a bit.
And his word of power is because on those conversation hearts, it's like kiss me or I love you, and I thought, what if it's just obey?
We could go.
And so that's going to come.
Yeah.
All this is going to like this. I normally don't mind talking about spoilers because it's all online so far. Everything I've done so far is online, but this is going to be a major plot point that is revealed at the end of issue 3, which I'm currently in the middle of.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm 15 pages in on steamrollerman.com into issue 3. By the end of issue 3, you learn Sugar Daddy's origin and what his whole game plan is, and it has to do with all that candy-mancy occult confectionery stuff. So I don't want to say anything else.
No, fair enough.
Here's another idea. We could have those love hearts with other things written on them.
No, Tony, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I'm sure some enterprising young person has already done something
There's
similar.
A website, of course, that has something like that.
Right.
And the degenerate messages and slogans on the candy.
I've got about 5 going around.
Yeah. We'll have none of that filth on this very highbrow.
So yeah, that's where that idea came from, and that was the whole genesis of Sugar Daddy and the gingerbread golem. And I wanted to do like a like a big bruiser type character, like the Hulk or the Thing, where he was essentially like a childlike character. And so that became the gingerbread golem was kind of my way to do that kind of character. And he's fun to draw because I can get a bit more graphic in terms of the shapes that it's more he's a more designy type character. So I can just go for sort of pure shape language with his posing and stuff, which is really fun to draw. So,
I can see we're getting a bit into craft now, and there's a couple of questions around that I was going to ask actually. Matt, is like I'm guessing your day job involves drawing in some way as well, does it?
Yeah. Not so much these, I started off on The Simpsons as a character layout artist. So I was drawing all day, every day, basically animating scenes on the show. These days, for the last 10 years on the show, I've been the supervising storyboard director. So that's more, in a supervisory capacity. I'm still doing drawings, but it's more like just doing a rough sketch to give to another artist to say more like this, or pose the character like this, or make the expression like this. So I'm not doing as much drawing, but I still do draw.
I was going to say it's like busman's holiday a bit for you. You're coming home and drawing Steamroller Man.
Well, also like with that, you're drawing another person's style, which Steamroller Man is very much you, isn't it?
Yeah. That was one of my initial motivations behind doing my own comic, because for years leading up to that point I had really stopped drawing anything outside of work, and so I only drew The Simpsons, and so Steamroller Man, doing my own thing, was really my way to break out of the confines of only drawing the same thing every day and
reconnect with your own.
Yeah, like this is what I want to do, and yeah, exactly. Reconnect with, well, how do I draw? What's my style? Because I'd kind of completely lost touch with that. I didn't even know, well, what is my style? Because my job involves, part of the job description is drawing in someone else's style. That's what most animation artists are paid to do, is draw in someone else's style.
How long did it take to find the voice, as in the artistic voice, the way you were drawing it? Was it like instantly like, right, I'm drawing Steamroller Man and out it came? Or did you have to have a bit of a play?
I had to have a bit of a, well, it all happened like on the page. I didn't do any kind of preliminary, pre-production designs or anything like that. Everything was just happening on the page. And so you'll see, if you go to my website and look through the entire range of pages, that there is a continual evolution. When I first started, I was definitely, working that Simpsons stuff out of my system and kind of working out, well, what do I want this comic to look like? And it was also a process of getting my skills to catch up to what I had in my head in terms of how I wanted it to look, but I wasn't quite hitting that. And
that's a tough process to go through for every creator.
It was, and it's a continuing process. Like I'm still I'm just trying to make the comic look as good as I can possibly look. And I do feel like I'm progressing with each page that I do, and making it look more like what I have in my head. But yeah, it was a definite process of getting to that point, but I was doing it all in public with each page that I put online, so
that's a brave way of doing it. Is there any way you separate it? Did you try and think, right, my day job I draw on, I'm guessing you draw on tablets and stuff like that. Did you think, right, at home I'm going to draw on paper anything like that?
First I drew the first like 12 pages or so of Steamroller Man just on like photocopy paper, computer printer paper, with pencil and a brush pen. Because that was one thing that I hadn't drawn anything on paper either since the Simpsons switched to completely doing the animation digitally on Cintiq tablets and stuff, which we switched over to that around the time of just after the Simpson movie. I hadn't also, it was sort of wanting to get back to more of a tactile way of doing it. That eventually, I now do the comic completely in Clip Studio Paint. That was also a gradual thing where I first started scanning the pages. When I first started to think, well, do I want to print this? I looked at my hand lettering and I was like, oh, this looks terrible. I know there's like downloadable fonts that I could do. Yeah. And I knew that Clip Studio Paint had a lettering function. Yeah. And so I had Clip Studio Paint, I just hadn't used it. Yeah. And so, I first scanned in the pages and redid the lettering. And then it was just a matter of like, oh, well, I wonder if I could like do touch-ups, like art touch-ups in Clip Studio Paint. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm getting the hang of this. And I wonder if I could just, do inks. Like I'll pencil and then scan the pencils in, and then maybe I'll practice inking. And then, and then it became, well, I could also pencil it. And then, the last thing that I was doing by hand was my thumbnails, which I still kind of do, because I find that the tactility of pencil on paper, there's something about it just connects directly to your brain. And when I'm trying to come up with layouts and stuff in the thumbnails, I find that it's easier for me to do it on just a piece of paper and then scan the layout in. And then I go from there. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of creators that do that. They still do, even if they work digitally, they still work out thumbnails like on a pencil, and then just
I don't know what it is. It's just some sort of magical thing that something
happens on the paper.
Doing it by hand with paper and that tactile sensation.
For me, when I do thumbnails on paper, it's because that can't change size. Whereas digitally, you can kind of like zoom in and out. Whereas when you're working on the thumbnail in RL, you can get a good sense of shapes and sizes and how the flow's working a bit more than when it's digital.
That's a good point.
There's a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing that I recently sort of took steps to try and solve was that zoom in and out thing. It's so easy to especially when you're inking digitally, you can vary your line weights, and if you can zoom in at the same time, you end up doing these fine lines which aren't even going to be visible when it's printed. And so now I try and work as much as possible. Like, I don't zoom in more than like 75%, or like enlarge it by whatever it would be. And I also don't adjust the brush size. Like, I stick to, okay, this brush is 20 pixels wide and it gives me this thick of a line. I'm not going to shrink the brush to try and get a fine detail. I'm just going to use this brush as though it's a physical tool that
holds you to that
shrink.
size.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of works a little bit better for the final size image. I don't.
You can see that, man. Yeah, you can see that looking at the page, definitely.
Oh, thanks.
Consistency, isn't it? It's sort
of exactly.
How tight are your pencils? Are you a creative?
Very.
And then you're literally just inking over what? Yeah,
because I'm not confident enough in my inking that I can just sort of take I don't know if you guys have seen Chris Samney's work online where his pencils work. How do you work from that? It's just like this bare bones kind of rough, and then he's just doing it all in
filling
ink.
it in.
He does a couple of lines, and then all of a sudden your jaw drops.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Very
and
tough,
also his use of positive space and negative space and light and dark, and he's like, that's not even on the page in his rough. He puts all that in the ink stage, which I am nowhere near confident enough in my abilities to even attempt.
But that's a practice
my
thing,
pencils,
surely,
well, I guess, but I feel like that would take so much more practice for me personally, that from where I am in my artistic development right now, I have to tightly pencil everything except the backgrounds. Like, backgrounds I sort of improvise, but the characters and it's always it's specifically to get the light and dark and the shadows, so I can get that looking right, and then I can be confident enough that, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to do in the inks now. Even though, I say all this and it's like, but I'm inking digitally, so I can always just erase the ink and redo it if I have to.
Yeah.
But it's just something about the way I process mentally, like what I'm doing. It's like, no, I want to work all this out in the pencil stage. So then, the inking really does just become, I'm just tracing what I've already put down in pencil.
If you wanted to try a different workflow process, that's got to be incorporated in doing Steamroller Man pages, because you couldn't sort of say, it might be more difficult to say, right, I'm going to have to put aside X amount of hours each week to try and work out this new way of doing stuff, and it might not be successful. And all that time you're doing that, you're not producing pages. So it's kind of
I mean, that's act. I'm sure you would know just as well as I mean, you guys all do, create your own comics, I understand. So you guys would know that, like, you only have a certain amount of time each day to work on that comic, and if you're not producing that comic, then that comic's not getting done. Like, part of the thing with this Kickstarter was, like, Kickstarter, like a Kickstarter campaign takes so much preparation that it's actually taking away the time that I have to produce new pages.
Yeah,
of
we
the
hear
comic.
that a lot. Yeah.
So it's a little bit frustrating.
You have to kind of shift from being a creator to being a kind of like more of an admin kind of person.
And I know that from talking to other creators who have done Kickstarters, like one guy said, like, oh, I didn't work on my comic for a year when I was preparing my Kickstarter. Like, it was a year
Bloody
between.
Hell. Wow.
Really?
That's excessive.
Like, oh
that's
God,
a lot of work.
no.
Yeah,
No.
doesn't have to be that bad.
Drinking a lot.
But no, I totally like identify, because I was like, yeah, it feels like I'm getting to that point too, because I only produced, I think like last year I only produced like 12 new pages of the comic.
And also, like, if
because other stuff kept getting in the way.
Exactly. If it's like, it's not your full-time job making a comic, you've got to work it around everything.
Exactly.
Sometimes life comes at you hard. It could be like, life stuff, health stuff, admin, could be anything.
Exactly.
Knock it on the head. But I think it's another stumbling block sometimes is the perfectionist in us all. Like, if a page isn't right, I can't put that page out. We've got to try and push ourselves to, look, the next one will be better, can be perfect. This one has to go. Otherwise, we'll never put anything out, will it, if we're constantly judging ourselves.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I really... It's funny, because when I started the comic, I was like, it's just going to look like what it's going to look like. I'm just going to do a page every 2 weeks. And if it's not going to have, I'm not going to noodle it. I'm not going to like overwork it. But now I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I can't put this one up. I got to redo this.
So you set a standard for yourself. Literally
I've set a standard for myself. Yeah. So it's sort of like a little bit counterproductive, because I don't want to put a page up that looks less than what I know I could do if I really take time.
Word of caution I'd throw at any artist who's starting a new book or webcomic or whatever is, like, you're setting the standard on your first couple of pages, and your enthusiasm invariably may drop a little, or you think, oh my God, I'm taking hours and hours to put these pages out. I need to spend like 3 hours max. So you're going to have to kind of drop that quality. It's just one of those things you got to be careful of, because every time I've done a new issue of Vanguard, the first couple of pages are like, fucking details this. I'm drawing the sole in this person's shoe. And then by the fifth page, it's like, they're
not even wearing shoes.
They're
all naked again.
They're not getting patterns on the shoes anymore.
And you do all your, like, Vanguard's all you, right, Dan? Like, you color it and everything. Because, I've seen pages of your stuff, and I'm just like,
he's a machine.
God, how do you find time to do all this? So
strained relationship with my wife.
He's that weird bloke on the tube who goes round the circle line twice.
No, well, I mean, kudos to you, because it's really impressive just seeing the level of work that goes into your comics. I'm just like, Jesus, how does this guy get it all done? So
agreed, man. Yeah.
Don't know. Just keep fucking working.
But there's also like that learning to let go, which always interested me, because like there is the standard we set ourselves, but there's sometimes you can be overly harsh on yourself, because the people who are reading it won't necessarily. They could see it and just go, well, that's amazing. How many times have I spent hours on a piece of work, showing it to people, and like, that's all right. And I just doodle something, and people talk about it like it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I think coming from animation, and like, again, being in a supervisory capacity, part of my job is to correct people's work. And so I'm looking for the things that don't work, and I do that in my own work so it's sort of like, it's hard for me to let go of that mindset, especially so when I'm looking at my own work. Yeah,
I
just find it very.
Yeah.
You've really got to balance it with the energy in the project. I think sometimes you can tell if people overwork stuff.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you can tell the enthusiasm that's gone into your comic, and you can tell the fun that's gone into it. I think sometimes you have to say, right, stick it out, because this is. I heard this. Funny enough, I heard a Martin Amis quote on this the other day. It made me laugh. It was he says, when you publish a book, either you get away with it or you don't get away with it. In other words, he's saying, just stick it out. What you're doing, put it out.
Right.
Which I really like that about it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to
highbrow
and incorporate that a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're working on something that's, I mean, the core part of it is it's fun, isn't it? So there's probably a lot of creators who, they want to do the gritty, Dark Knight ripoff, whatever it is. But to do that consistently and constantly, if you're dealing with dark material, that's going to be hard, isn't it? Whereas if you're dealing with a giant gingerbread man and a bloke for $8
gingerbread man, the wilderness years, that'll be in 20 years' time. He's done a load of heroin. He's in an alleyway.
Right, exactly.
I honestly don't think there can be a dark reimagining of Steamroller Man. Surely there.
No, well, good. I don't really, that's been my intention the whole time. Was I wanted to make a comic that kids could read, but also adults could read. It's like that Batman 66 kind of vibe, where when you're a kid, you don't get the jokes. You're just thinking, this is amazing. It's Batman. It's on TV kind of thing. But then when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, okay. They've got their tongue firmly in their cheek.
That's the Simpsons too, as well,
to
a certain extent, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you got the dual layer going on.
Yeah, so I really wanted to try and get that sensibility into Steamroller Man so that it could be enjoyed by anyone who wants to pick it up. I mean, I think I gave Steamroller Man to one of my nephews to read when he was pretty young. I think he was like 8 when I first showed it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's good, but there's too many big words." So I think maybe it's like if you're like 11 or 12, you'll get it. And then, adults can enjoy it. But I deliberately make any violence in it is just sort of like cartoony superhero violence. It's nothing graphic, and there's no swearing, there's no questionable, not suitable for work content. It really is. I really am just making it for a general audience.
Totally works.
Are you thinking of doing any conventions or signings or anything like that? Are you going to sort of roll out and do that sort of thing?
Yeah, once I get once this Kickstarter campaign finishes and I get the books printed, I'm going to start doing conventions, because that's always been a dream of mine for since I started going to San Diego convention, comic convention, the year that I first arrived here in 1996 in LA. And I've gone every year since. And every year, I get inspired by the small press guys doing their own thing. And I would always think, I want to do my own comic one day. And exhibit and be the guy behind the table at a convention rather than the guy in front of the table, which I've been as a convention goer. So I'm finally gonna.
You're all but there.
Yeah.
Almost there.
And the world will just open up more as well. I mean, I hate the word. I mean, I think networking is the wrong term for it, because when you're at a convention, you just meet loads of similar creators, and then you just you make your own social circle, and all of a sudden
you come away from it inspired, don't you?
It's cool. I've even sort of experienced that a bit from just being a regular convention, a regular attendee of San Diego Comic-Con every year, because people do start to especially when I go with my wife and kids, because we're sort of a family of geeks. My wife's into she was reading comics when we first met and all that sort of stuff. So we've brought our kids since they were babies, and so the booth the guys who exhibit there recognize, they're like, oh, that's that family. Oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I remember you guys from last year. And so, so we've sort of have built up sort of friendships and relationships with certain creators just by virtue of just seeing them every year, and you kind of have that yearly catch up chat. So yeah, it's really cool.
And it's a good thing to get on like distribution. Yeah. If you get on a distro list for a different company, we've got a couple of distros over here that will take on American and, foreign language books and stuff like that, because it's so difficult to import and export books now, especially seemingly from the States. But if you got on a distro list, that's always a good thing to do. And those guys are always omnipresent at these things, I think.
Oh, right. Cool. That sounds good.
I mean,
sorry, B, I interrupted.
This is just the beginning of like the Steamroller Man legacy, I think.
We were there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which entails us to free T-shirts at some point. I believe it.
From your lips to God's ear, or whatever the expression is. We'll see.
I mean, obviously the Kickstarter is still running. That is still forefront of your mind. I mean, it's doing gangbusters, but as you know, it's still an ongoing thing that right up until it finishes, and then when it finishes, you're like, oh, I've got to get it done.
Oh, no, I've got to get it packaged out.
Packaged out and all that.
I know. I'm already thinking that. I'm already sort of thinking, oh, now, okay, so this is a success. Now I've got to figure, okay, so...
My advice, get a couple of mates. Get a couple of mates in, put on some beer and pizza, and then sit their bag up, do the sketches you got to do, sign them, and do a little conveyor belt, but keep them lubricated. I find is
I'm gonna try and do that with my kids, but without the alcohol. I'll enlist them.
That's a good idea.
Child labour, as always. Something.
I bribed my son with Fortnite V-Bucks.
Oh my god!
Put these in bags.
That's good.
There's air in this one.
That's a good idea.
But please, Father, I want some food or daylight.
No
Big
joke.
Backing boards.
Bag those comics. Back them, I said.
That's upside down.
But apart from the Kickstarter and the first issue, what is the future? I mean, obviously issue 3 is in progress, but what does the future hold for Steamroller Man?
Well, it's intended at, I've got, a bunch of other ideas, and I just want to keep doing it as long as I can. I look at those creators who are veteran, like Walt Simonson. He's still doing comics, and he's I don't know if he's in his 70s yet, but he's certainly in his 60s. So I want to just kind of, hopefully my eyesight and my hand holds up, that I can just keep drawing and doing comics into retirement. After I retire from my animation career. Because I really do enjoy it, as it's sort of a release from work. Like I people have asked me oh, would you want to draw comics full time and do Steamroller Man full time? And I'm sort of I mean, obviously the idea of that sounds very tempting, but there's also the reality of, well, once I'm doing Steamroller Man for 10 hours a day, then that becomes my job. And when something is a job, the shine wears off.
It has to change.
I like having Steamroller Man
as mortgage with it.
Exactly. That puts more pressure and more stress on the activity. I mean, that was part of the reason why I dropped the bi-weekly posting schedule, was because it just became too stressful to try and get meet that deadline. I was like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be doing this for fun outside of work, and I've just made this a second job that I'm not getting paid for. So I have to sort of scale back and
Do you mind if I ask a bit of a cheeky question, Matt? Have you ever, because obviously Matt Groening was a comics guy to begin with. Have you ever spoken to him about it? Have you ever brought it up, or is that something you wouldn't do?
I mean, we're pretty distanced from Matt Groening in terms of the what do you say, the levels on the totem pole. He's up at the top. So I've only met him like once and spoken to him once.
Right.
I've been in meetings where he's in the meeting, but that's sort of like, now we're in work mode.
Yeah.
Of course.
So you're not like, oh, hey, Matt, can I get you? Can I bend your ear about my comic?
Can you pledge this, please? Yeah.
But have you told, like, is there one of those over the break room? There's a little flyer on the board saying for your Kickstarter,
Oh yes, I did that. We're still all working from home on The Simpsons right now, so we're still not back in the studio. And it's going very smoothly. We all shifted within a week of the lockdown over here. We were all working from home, and and it just because we're all working on computers anyway, so it was a pretty easy transition. But we do have like a virtual, like a kitchen meeting room in Teams kind of thing. And so I've put things up on like, oh hey, I don't know if I know some of I've been doing a comic in my spare time. It's going to be on Kickstarter next week, so just to let you know, check it out. And so it's. And I definitely, if we were in the studio, I definitely would have been putting flyers up in the staff kitchen, alerting people to my Kickstarter.
I would say you've got a comic and an environment, a work environment. That was fine. I work in an environment where I once accidentally mentioned to a lady I work with that we won a sort of what's called an O'Closker, one of our comics. And I should never have said.
Oh, I know what an O'Closker is.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I should never have said it to this lady at work. She's a lovely, lovely lady. And she says, oh, can I see it? And I sent it to her. And that was 3 years ago, and she's never mentioned it.
That's the worst.
Really?
That's the worst.
Never mentioned it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't even know what
I'm not sure if she's rung HR. I'll be honest with you.
Wow. That makes it very awkward, doesn't it?
Mine is of a slightly different quality and subject area to yours, I think, Matt. So it's made it slightly more awkward.
An audience.
And bear in mind, on page one was a picture of someone who looked very similar to me, but naked. So surrounded by the hookers.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back, I think.
And now me and that lady are married. No, that's a joke.
It all worked out.
Oh dear! As did this chat. This has been amazing. We could talk for hours. I mean, just to talk about your comic life. So you have to come back in the future.
I'd love to. This is like. I don't want to stop talking. Like this is
I know. I'll tell you what. Next time we'll have you for the whole show, so you can recommend
as well.
I'm sure there's loads of stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. That would be fantastic.
Thanks, yeah. But of course, where can here's the important link bit for all our lovely listeners. Where can people find you, Steamroller Man, etc.?
Okay, so the Kickstarter. I'll mention the Kickstarter because I'm assuming this show is going to go up coming week.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so the Kickstarter is on now, and you can go to kickstarter.steamrollerman.com to check out the campaign. If you want to just read the comic, it's all on. Everything I've done so far is online for free. You can read it at Global Comics, which I know sponsors the show. And you can go to steamrollerman.com or Linktree/Steamrollerman. You can find all my social media links on Linktree/Steamrollerman. So there you go.
Excellent. Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I think that's the first Linktree we've had as well.
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it sounds good.
It's very convenient. I'm surprised. You just put all your links on one thing, and it's just like a little landing page that you just tell people, Linktree/Steamrollerman, and then
you can go to Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah, you can pick. They click on whichever one they want to go to. So, it's good.
Yeah,
Steamrollerman OF.
I'm not going to comment on that.
No. But there's money to be made, Matt. But this has been awesome. You've been awesome, Matt. Thank you, and I cannot wait to read more Steamroller.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, and again, like I'm just so flattered and humbled that you guys.
Like, don't be silly, man. It's a good stuff. If it wasn't good, we wouldn't talk about it.
Global Comics. So yeah, that was such a high point of doing the comic was hearing Dan like say, "I fucking love this comic." So
man, it's fucking awesome.
As like a one of those blurbs, I used Dan's quote.
Yeah,
because it's like to have somebody say, "I effing love this comic." How it doesn't get better
all of our pull quotes seem to have swear words in them. Yeah. All of our
I wonder why.
Mine was just expletives for one of them. I think.
Really?
Was it fucking fuck?
Fucking hell.
Fucking fuck. That's usually ends up when the last one.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Whenever I've seen us do like quotes, usually ours is one of the last ones. So everyone's like, this is really thoughtful take. And at the bottom, it's like, fucking hell. Oh, this is fucking great.
I used yours as the first one.
Yes.
There it is.
There you go.
Because, like, seriously, like, that's so, like,
yeah,
it says it all, basically. It's like,
well, hopefully we'll bump into you at a convention at some point, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be fantastic.
I'd love to meet you guys in person.
Yeah.
I'm at Heroes in Charlotte, but I guess you're not going to that one. That's in about 3 weeks' time.
No,
that'd be a good one for you once you got out and it's released.
Yeah, once I actually start exhibiting, I definitely want to start doing more outside of California. So.
Yeah, that's a good one, I reckon, because it's all comics. Yeah.
Oh, so cool. There you go, listeners. You have been warned. This is not the last you've heard of Matthew Schofield. Thank you, Matt.
I'll be back.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am very excited about comics after that.
Me too. I love an interview like that. Yeah.
If you haven't checked out the comic, you'll love it. And also, like, the sensibility of us three on here. And in the great tradition of things like The Tick, etc., Steamroller Man's just...
A lot of little out-of-sight gags and little Easter egg gags and shit like that as well. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention, but he gets the reactions of the people around him. That's one thing people miss when you land in jokes. It's like you need the reaction of people like, "Oh God."
He does that thing, the couple and the man's looking back.
They
at
made me
looking,
laugh.
Yeah, they're in it, aren't they? You see, looking at Steamroller Man. Yeah.
Great stuff. Do check it out. Yeah.
And speaking of checking out things, it's time for the shout out section of the show. So what have we got, gents?
I've got a few. So our buddy Nick Gonzo is organising a 2-day celebration of independent print called Stapled. The email he sent us is entitled Xenophilia. I thought that was kind of a cool name. It's running on the Sunday the 25th and Bank Holiday Monday the 26th of August at Left Bank, which is a venue in Leeds. I've added the application for tables link into our Slack. If you have a look in conventions in the Slack, if you're a member of the Slack, there's opportunities to go to that. And he's keeping the price down, doing the right thing around a convention. Scourge is the new Nexus book from Mike Barron. Nexus, easily one of my favourite ever characters. And it seems to be we're getting a lot of Nexus product. We're getting Steve Rude and Mike Barron are doing separately. They haven't fallen out, incidentally. I've looked into this. They're still good friends, but they're both doing different. I think Steve Rude is more like daily comics, more like newspaper strip kind of comics, and Mike Barron's is more like standalone graphic novels. This will be the third one, I think. It's got art by Kelsey Shannon, and it can be read as part of a series or just as a one-off. Seen some of the art, it looks really nice. I have to say, go and have a look at that. A big shout out to Slack member Crow, Kro, who sent me his comic Chlobot in the City, issue 1. It's told in black and white, and it's almost in that Japanese shadow theatre style. Does that make sense? They do that sort of silhouette theatre style thing. There's a bit of that about it. It's a wacky story of a far-flung future where they've destroyed the planet and people fight monsters and robots, and then Chlobot appears almost like a sort of robot ambush bug. Mentioning ambush bug again there, mentioning him again, and he takes Cthulhu to a robot city. There you go. So really nicely experimental. It's also available on Global Comics. If you have that again, look at that. I think they now are £700 for this episode.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
I'm going to be in Charlotte if in just under a month.
Why did you say it like that? That was very specific. We're talking about North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, well, I can't help the minds of listeners.
Yeah, you're right.
Shots fucking fired.
To be fair, I'll tell you his name later, but a friend of mine did send me a voice note saying, every time you say you're going to be in Charlotte, I laugh. So good lad. So that's purely said for you. Tom Stewart. I'll be at Heroes in a few weeks now. Me and Cliff are going to be there, so come and say hi. They're my ones. There you go.
Nice, Dan.
Right. First up, we've got the Collected Letters of Courier Z, or Z, depending on where you are in the world. A collection of comic stories about one spacewoman, postwoman's, in a crime-ridden universe, illustrated by a mailbag of great artists. And that's by Nick Bryan. That's on Kickstarter now. Got 16 days to go. Do check that one out. We've got Blam and Glam, complete volume 1, 240-page plus pages, deluxe edition. Collects issues 1 to 8 of the series in which a woman with amnesia battles demonic mecha monsters.
That makes a nice collection, that man.
Yeah, oh god. Yeah. There's some mock-ups on the Kickstarter page. Oh, it looks absolutely lovely. What a lovely looking book. Fantastic cover illustration on the spine of the book as well.
Oh, nice.
All about that. We've got Schism, 100-page graphic novel. The earth is dying. Your world is a lie. Payback's a bitch. A hero fights a bloody path to freedom in an apocalyptic Spanish winter. I should be able to read these a lot better than I actually am able to. English is my first language. English is my first language.
Are you all right, Dan? You look
yeah. I'm sort of. I'm not having a stroke. I'm not having a stroke
Jackie
live
Chan
on the show.
in Rush Hour.
And lastly, not least, we've got Andrew Clemson. He's his first licensed book out in October. A Minecraft book called Minecraft: Heart of Cobblestone. Written by Andrew Clemson and art by Jeremy Lawson. So go add that to your pull list or pre-order. It's great to see people doing well and getting books out there like this. Fantastic work. Nice one, Andrew.
Nice.
He done Agents of what's the superhero girl in fantasy? Damsel in Distress.
Damsels of Distress.
Damsel of Distress, that's right, yeah.
Which is a brilliant book. I've got a couple of events to put on your calendars, people. One, which was posted on Instagram by our good friend Gareth Sleightholme, which is Sequent'ull Comic Art Festival, happening Saturday, 31st of August, 2024. The Jubilee Central, this is in Hull, Jubilee Central, 62 King Edward Street, Hull. This is an independent comic artists and publishers selling comics, graphic novels and prints. There's a beautiful poster if you follow Gareth, which is AKAHESIR on Instagram, which you should because his artwork's amazing anyway.
Oh yeah, good, yeah.
And he's always posting about gallery things he's doing artwork wise. But
he did me a great Dylan dog once. Like,
awesome.
Lovely. Yeah, really good.
He did a Pendragon redesign on a piece of A4. And I've got it framed up. It's fucking lovely.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've got prints of his and some sketches as well. He's just an amazing artist. Follow him. But he posted up on his Instagram the poster, which is a wonderful piece by Mark Stafford, who's a great artist.
Oh, yeah, okay. Artist in residence at the Cartoon Museum.
Oh, is he? Oh, I didn't know that. I should know that, but I don't know many things in this world. So add that one.
Although I might be wrong.
Well, who knows? We're not afraid to be wrong on this show.
Nah.
We just never
mostly
are.
wrong.
Yeah,
we're just afraid to be right.
Turn into the skid. I'm always wrong all the time.
Exactly. But what is so right is, as we're talking, this weekend, 25th and 26th of May is, what is it, Dan?
Lawless.
Lawless
Comic Con.
Celebrating 10 years of the Lawless and Lawgiver shows and stuff. We had Sue on the show not too long ago to talk about what it is. They got a brand new guest, brand new comic art exhibition. There's panels and there's all kinds of things. You can go back a couple of weeks to that episode, which is great anyway. And if you're there, if you are going there, then you might see some of us from the podcast.
Yeah.
If you do, come up, say hello. Let's have a chat about comics.
Might be accompanied by the Make-A-Wish kid. So,
that's or the fourth Beatle, as I call it.
Who's going? Are you two going then? Are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna be there, and Tom Curry's gonna be with us. So expect to hear a little bit about that, and I'll probably be posting some. When I was there the last time, not last year, year before, I took loads of pictures of the comic art gallery. Tony knows I love looking at the old vintage art and stuff. So
I took pictures of you with the dread helmet. No, did you have the dread helmet on?
Was it Strontium Dog?
Strontium Dog. I took a picture of you. Yeah.
And me being arrested by someone.
That's it. Yeah.
Which was nothing to do with the convention.
Yeah.
But go to
unrelated incident.
But unrelated incident. Yes. So go to lawlesscomiccon.co.uk to find out more. And yes, I think from that to speaking of comics, we're here to recommend some comics. And Tony, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so my first one is American Nature Presents Issue 1. This is a preview copy. It's not out yet, although it is about to be in Diamond previews, so you'll be able to get a copy there. So make sure you pre-order it because it is very good. The cover it combines the worlds of Joss Pettinger's Ted Wood, who I've talked about previously. If anyone's read Goiter, which just comes out, that's a character from that, and the Santos Sisters by Greg and Fake, which is also a comic that I've recently talked about a few times. And I just got issue 6 at this very day. It combines the best of US and UK, or a very small amount of UK indie crowd, with comics, articles, and columns. And it's distributed by Floating World Comics, the hotness at the moment. And I genuinely think this is going to be the next thing. So, we've had Bubbles, we had Strangers for a while, didn't we? I think this is the next thing. I do really think it's good. And I'll tell you exactly why in a minute. Inside, you have Clown Meat from Joss Pettinger, who, I don't know if anyone knows Josh at all, but he's an English dude, I believe from the Isle of Wight, who now lives in the States. He's done some stuff. Ted Wood goes on a date with Mrs. Rayner's niece. It doesn't end so well. It's a good one. Greg and Fake give us the Santos Sisters in Chipmunk Caper. The superheroes go on a spa day and are interrupted by fur burglars. Not exactly what you think it might be, Dan.
Shame.
Yeah. Another brilliant satire on the world of Archie by the Santos Sisters. Then we get Rich Tommaso, another hot artist at the moment. Really is Rich's stuff. He does Carol, the costume designer. And it leads into a sort of old Hollywood style with outdated sort of systems and values and affections and stuff like that, and it's really good. There's some other stuff in there that is really worth a look. You got listeners will probably be interested in, or a lot of the comic creators who listen to this will be interested in the Indie Comics Bag by Mark Koprinaroff. Loads of little short reviews of comics that I haven't heard of before from the underground scene over in the States. Really interesting. We get a nice big piece on manga. We get an interview with Elias Cortez about the state of comics in Mexico. Sell Me Something You Love by Todd Eggleston. A nice bit on falling in love with comics over and over again. Sort of Madeline, that type of thing that we did. Nate McDonough, if anyone follows him on Instagram, Grixie Cola, a lot of his Instagram stuff is about him bin diving in comic shops and the annoying people are there and the fines he has, and he does this sort of comic about it. And then he writes quite a lot about that. We get another comic called Phlox's Planet by Adam Tinius and Stefano Fortis, a story of anthropomorphic. It's a sort of strange space thing. It's good. You like it, trust me. So there's also a column about blowjobs by me. Keep an eye on previews.
We read that. That's great.
Thank you. Keep an eye on previews. You can also go to www.santossisters.com for release dates and pre-order and stuff like that. I know it says an advert for it in the new Santos Sisters comic as well. I'm really proud to be in this, and I really think it's genuinely something. When you look at Tommaso and Greg and Fake, and you've also got Josh Pettinger in it, I think it's going to get the hotness. I suggest it will probably sell out if make sure your comic shop in the UK gets it in. So I know Gosh will be getting some in. I spoke to them about it today. So yeah, definitely get on that straight away. American Nature Presents issue 1. There you go.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I was a bit of a cheeky swine and met with Tony, and he gave me a shifty Rose Kingdom, which was a Kickstarter he backed.
Yeah, this is good.
Written by James Robertson, art by Jeff Johns, colours by Brendan Wagner, letters by Troy Piteri, and designed by Joshua Kozin. The art style really reminded me of Wild Goose a little bit. As soon as I started reading it, I was getting sort of notes of that. I really enjoyed it. Some of the cityscapes and landscapes work is absolutely fucking fantastic. and in the back of it, there's a whole slew of like character sketches and designs. I'd really be interested in picking this up when it comes out as a physical book. I know it was on Kickstarter originally, but I'd definitely keep an eye out for the second one when they do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you like that, man. I showed it to you and I thought, oh, this will be up your street. In fact, I think we texted you, Vince, as well at the same time and said, listen, you'll be up to this. It's got that real D&D vibe about it. It's strongly in that you got the swords master, you got the female princess who's a fighter as well. You've got the thief. It's that sort of world, but it's done well and absolutely lovely cover as well. The cover is really
great
good
stuff. I mean,
and we know Robinson can write. He's a great writer. He's much, I think he needs. I'd love to see him do more. Why? Maybe it's their choice, but I'm surprised he hasn't been picked up by someone like Mad Cow.
Yeah, I don't understand that. That's kind of. It seems a shoo-in. It's great. Really well done. Great stuff. It's weird because like D&D and all that fantasy stuff, it's like one of those almost evergreen kind of genres that it may go on the back burner for a while and then suddenly boom, it's back. I think we're still riding the high from like the Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
Even though that fell off the boil big time, Dungeons and Dragons had a big resurgence from lockdown, people playing it online, and then we've just kind of kept on going. So
it's like the fantasy genre is such a fertile ground to create whatever you want, whether you want to do your D&D comic, whether you want to do your Game of Thrones spin-off, rip-off, whatever, whether you want to do something that's completely your own in a fresh new world, or perhaps you just want to do a parody book. It's all there, isn't it? And like, that I think other titles that are the sort of legacy titles benefit from that. For instance, like Conan has come back into the cycle over the past 10, 15 years. Conan's always been there in comics.
Yeah. But it peaks and troughs with Conan. It always has been,
but you see it a little more. Do you know, on the radar, wherever it is, and I notice it's a little more visible these days.
The thing is with this sort of book is Dungeons and Dragons it's not only a kind of a genre, but it's a trope as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think a bit like superhero is a trope. And because you've already got that set like mold, you can subvert it. In another way,
because
so you can play
it in
extra with the characters
with the group of characters. It's telling a fresh original story, but there's something like, oh, I recognise that kind of look.
Yeah, you can play with it.
With regards to Game of Thrones, people, they kind of people do that lazy comparison, like it's like Blade Runner meets the Blues Brothers or something like that. And a lot of fantasy books will drop in. It's like Game of Thrones. It's like Game of Thrones season 8, like as in complete shit.
Or like season 1 where there's no monsters.
It's kind of if you want to kind of the political machinations of the first series was absolutely fucking gold, great. But I think nothing kind of dropped out the public sort of zeitgeist quicker than fucking Game of Thrones.
And I think,
yeah.
This is almost a topic for another show, isn't it? But if you were doing, when you make a TV show or like, a prose novel or something that is talking about the political sort of intrigue within this fantasy setting, within this historical setting, fair enough. You do it in a comic, which is mainly a visual medium. That's a hard slog.
Yeah,
I think the writing has to be next level to keep the attention, because we go into this sort of genre with sort of a bit more open eyes, open hearts. Show us the supernatural, show us the monsters, show us the adventure. We don't necessarily want to sit down and someone talking about.
Wilson and Wild Goose are doing that great in Dust.
Yeah, it's nice to see G. Willow got let's not talk about the Eisners, but there's the odd high point in it. It's nice to see that G. Willow Wilson got a nom for that. I think it's a solidly written book. But why the fuck didn't Wild Goose get one? I don't understand the world sometimes.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of all award stuff, isn't it? Like it kind of.
Yeah.
Well, he knows we love him, and what more do you need?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd say generally don't base your fucking like highs and lows of your life on accolades other people give you, because
no, just what we say. So just for the listeners, once more, Dan, what was that title again?
I don't know, because I just clicked away from it. But it is King. It is Rogue's Kingdom. Robinson Johnson Wagner.
Because Brennan Wagner is Matt Wagner's son.
Ah, there you go. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Man with knowledge. T.S.
I met him in New York. Lovely dude. Yeah.
So what's this Rex Entertainment that's from? So go check that out.
Nice. My pick, which is an issue 1, this week, and it's one that we've had a little bit of a discussion sort of off air about it. And it is definitely a recommendation because I think people should check this out. I read this on Global Comics. It's also an interesting sort of topic in its own kind of way as well. I went for a horror book, which you can read on Global Comics at the moment, called Teether. This is by David Hutchison. It's out from Antarctic Press. Anyone who knows Antarctic Press, they have a certain sort of library of titles. All kinds of crazy stuff on there. But this is a straight-up horror book. Synopsis of issue 1. Dylan Brown thinks he's made a friend with new transfer student Lily Quist. But when the grisly remains of local kids appear, he starts to suspect the new girl has something to do with it. Soon Dylan realizes that an ancient endless hunger has come to Carroll Hill, Indiana, in the form of a 10-year-old girl. He and his classmates now have to stop Lily's vicious, gore-drenched feast before... And it cuts off there. But I think that synopsis kind of does it disservice because a lot of the first issue... I was very impressed with this first issue.
Me too, man.
And the art, it's fucking glorious. There was something about David's sort of like character work, which reminded me a little bit of Charlie Adlard in a way. This is a full-on, gore fest sort of horror book, but it is school kids. In that sort of realm of like It, where the horror is real and school kids are in peril. Just up front, be aware of that. If that's not your bag, then this isn't your bag. But it's basically a giant monster in the woods, this weird demon thing that has been created. And we start off with kids running away from something in the woods, and one of them just gets... It was a shocking moment. One of them just gets taken out immediately. I didn't expect that to happen. I was like, what am I in for here? The first page itself is just teeth. And I immediately thought, oof, this is cool. This is, what is this horror book? As the story develops, you learn a bit more. There was a group of kids go out to do this ritual. Something goes wrong. The creature comes along and wants to consume them all. There was one kid, Dylan, who was sick that day, so he couldn't go out with his friends, and that's what they did. So he was spared it. He had no idea what was happening, but he was spared it. So he's like a fresh-faced kid who he just meets this girl Lily in the class and makes friends with her. But by that point of the book, we've already seen Lily get brutally killed by a monster. So the reader's thinking, okay, what's going on here? Is this going to be a slow burn sort of monster reveal, supernatural? As I've come to expect with some of my reading, with like something's killing the children, there's a drip feed, sort of like slow dread. This one, by page 30, is like, nah, fuck it. This is it goes for the jugular, doesn't it, Tony? In the first issue, it's
great first issue, man. Yeah.
It is. There is gore, there is violence. I was immediately wow. The first issue kind of wowed
awesome.
Me.
Yeah.
The other reason I want to bring this up is it's a 4-issue series, and it's all done. It's all available on Global Comics now. If you read it, I recommend that people continue reading it. I continued reading it. I finished the story. I enjoyed the story. The writing by Hutchison is pretty consistent throughout. I think that the tale, it is... I talked to the guys on the WhatsApp just sort of saying it is one of those schlocky, pick it up from the VHS rental sort of like horror movies, just does what it has to do. And that's it sort of thing. Doesn't mess around, doesn't pretend to be anything too outside of what it is. So the writing's consistent, but you notice there's a big drop-off in the art in the book. Now, when I say...
From issue 2, to be fair.
issue 2.
Issue 1's fully rendered, fully coloured.
Yeah. And issue 2... for me, it was still... I was still on board. It was still readable. And I've noticed that the horror bits, the gore bits, there are some creature designs when it gets to about issue 3 that are fucking great. They're really good. And they look twisted. If you like the sort of design of what this creature is in the first one, imagine that, but mixed with wild animals. There's some weird body horror stuff going on, which is always cool. But there was a sense of... This is a book from 2018 as well, so just to be relevant and let you know about that. I kind of got the feeling that it was almost... I want to say felt rushed. It was almost like there wasn't enough time to do the art properly. Do you know what I mean, Tony? It's sort of...
Yeah, I feel like either it was rushed or suddenly they were just uninterested in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, it's I because like you, I read the first issue, loved it. I was going to recommend it. I think about maybe 3 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't message you. I intended to message you guys about it, and then I read
I vaguely remember you saying something.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I read the first issue, loved it. Thought, oh yeah, this. Started writing my notebook the name of it to sort of recommend it, and then read issue 2. Got halfway through issue 2 and went, nah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Totally not as invested in the second issue at all. And maybe I should have stayed with it because I asked you about it. Should I stay with it? And you went, nah, if you're not feeling it, don't stay with it. Like almost. Yeah, but you enjoyed it.
Go to for many comics, anyway.
For life, isn't it? Yeah. But
I mean, I was in it. I mean, there is like some of the panels look sketchy, unfinished in some sort of way. They look
unfinished is the phrase we both used. Yeah, without consulting each other, we both felt that it was unfinished. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The draftmanship that is still unfinished from a very clearly talented sort of artist, and
he can draw still.
It doesn't affect the rhythm of the story, that he's written and going by. And the first 2 issues as well, I noticed they've got in the Global Comics one certainly they've got back matter. There's sketches, so that's why I think this artist cared about the story. Because they clearly, I've wanted to make this story for ages. Here's the designs. I've been playing with it. And they have the variant covers, and you see some classic. He's homaged some classic Marvel comics. Like there's an old X-Men one. I think there's a Spider-Man one as well. Yeah, in the back. So because it must have been kickstarted as well. They must have done issues of it. And then, but then as it goes on, it feels like maybe it was the schedule. Once it was on that Antarctic Press schedule, it just got away.
They had to pump out the stories out, get it out.
Who knows? I mean, it's fascinating. The story, it's not like the book's completely unfinished. And I think I've certainly got a couple of books that start off. I remember a book that I absolutely adore. I recommended like probably 7 years ago called Killing Pikmin, which was a horror sort of crime book. And that starts so well, and the last issue just feels like someone sketched it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, like what? It kind of doesn't.
It's as bad as that fucking Punisher, Circle of Blood, where they dropped out Mike Zeck on the last book and put in some other guy.
Yeah.
It's just a kick in the teeth.
I mean,
we do love that consistency of art, which is why some of our favourite runs have had the same artist, writer, or the same team, whatever it's going to be, all the way through it. And I think that was part of it. If it started off with the promise that this is what the rest of it's going to be like, I might have stuck with it. But because the first issue was such a high quality, and the drop off was so large,
the quality of it, I was like, "Fucking hell!"
We don't gauge our quality meters up high when we God bless them when we read an Antarctic book, do we?
No.
But for that one, I was like you. I think I was going through the Antarctic books, thinking, "Oh, I'm really recommended anything from them. What have they got going on?" And that one.
The covers are pretty striking on this.
Yeah, strong cover, man. Yeah.
We said about this in the talk with Matthew, didn't we? Like they're kind of starting off at a high bar, then realizing, we can't continue this quality. It can backfire on you.
Yeah.
Like this.
And maybe I'd be fascinated to see if there was, because like we say, sometimes life hits you hard, as we said. That it could be a life thing, or could be just schedules, or maybe
the geezer's got another gig and he's thought, right, I'm contractually obliged to get this out. This is how I'm just going to rush it out.
Yeah, it could be. It could be, because this is one creator doing this as well. There's no one.
I mean, that's a complete guess. Okay. I don't know that for sure. That's a complete guess.
But this creator, from the looks of it, is lettering. It says story and art. It doesn't say anyone else does the letters as well. So
it'd be all of it. Imagine.
Yeah. But I want to recommend issue 1, because issue 1 is a very strong issue 1.
I'll give that a read.
Yeah, it's really good. So and it's a quick read as well. The story is a quick read, so I'd be interested to see what people thought about it. Whether the art completely takes them away. It's an interesting one. Like how strong do stories have to be, and the art have to be for us to stick with them? Do you know what I mean? Because normally I'd be like, nah, it's a different artist for issue 2. I'm not feeling this. Maybe if it was a different artist, I could be telling a completely different story. But because it was the same person, but it
I think it's different if it was like a new Batman series. You'd be prepared to accept it more. But where it's an utterly new concept, and you're getting your eye around who all the characters are in it, then you got a new artist in, and you're thinking, well, who's that? What's that? It's completely,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Antarctic Press, Teether, issue 1. definitely look for it. It's worth it just for some of the creature design and the gore and everything on issue 1. It's a high recommend for an issue 1 teether. So that's my one.
On that note, I saw a film last night called Sting. It's like a horror film about like a spider.
Oh, I've heard that's good. Is it good?
It's good. The dad in it is like a comic book artist, and it's like, did they speak to a comic book artist? Because this is just like he's getting calls from his agents. Oh, we really need those pages. This comic's going to make a lot of money, and we need to get it on deadline. It's like, what's this? Are you fucking
buy, sell,
sell? Yeah, buy the comic pages, sell the comic pages. Just great film though, really good film.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that. Tony, what have you got?
My final one is Sanction issue 1, published by Mad Cave, out this week. It's got an absolutely scene-stealing cover. Cover A is by Dan Panosian. If you ever look it up online. Sanction from Mad Cave. Although the cover massively spoils something. There's a plot point spoil. It's such a striking cover.
That's a shame.
With Panosian's cover.
Yeah.
He's my favourite cover artist at the moment.
Best cover artist at the moment, I think.
Yeah,
genuinely think he's like head and shoulders above a lot of others. Yeah. The character he displays on the cover is hinted at in the last page of the comic, and only by the colour of the hair in a shadow, and then suddenly you're presented by this character. Saying that it sells copies. If it sells copies by having that on the cover, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Written by Ray Fawkes, art by Antonio Fuso, colours by Emilio Lecce, letters by Dave Sharp, based on an idea by Mark Irwin. It's a murder investigation in Leningrad. What's the name of Leningrad now? History. St. Petersburg. It's called St. Petersburg.
Okay. Dan, we just look really stupid now.
At the turn of the new year, from 1986 into 1987, before the wall came down, a long time before that, and two uniformed cops call a detective down to the bank of the river Neva, where there's a body of a naked woman. And this sort of the first detective, called Smirnoff, believe it or not, he's a sort of hard-bitten, cynical detective. You sense through the issue that there's something more going on. There may be an element of corruption going on. And he comes down and says, I'll write it off. It's a dead prostitute. Let's give it to another detective called Detective Dimitrovich. Now, Dimitrovich is known for his attention to detail in investigating murders, and also famously never fucking solves any of them. So, but this is kind of interesting because you get the sense that Smirnoff solves and closes a lot of cases by just attributing to a local drunk or something like that. But you discover that at least another one of Smirnoff's investigations may be linked to this dead woman, who is misidentified by the coroner, which is another kink in the story. He's a bit of a loner, Dmitrovich, and he begins to see a pattern between murders. And you also sense he's going to be crossing swords with the KGB. He goes into a bar and he comes out and he says to his colleague, that dude's from the KGB, the bloke who runs the bar. So it's real. There's a real energy to that pre-Putin darkness of Russian cities. You know, it's different from what we see. There's this whole sort of overbearing corruption and poverty and life is cheap thing going on. Really interesting environment. Plus, I love investigations in snow and cold, and there's
that's great. Yeah,
nice little atmosphere to it. It's a solid start to a comic. It's that industrial inner city pre-war intriguing setting. The art occasionally lacks detail, but I kind of think a lot of that is down to Fuso's style. You'll get two blokes walking down some steps by the river, and because they're slightly in the distance, there's no faces detail and stuff like that. It's that's his kind of style. I'm not sure it's immediately what I would go to, but it's got a sort of angular Russian Soviet feel to it in a way, and it's almost lightly coloured in a lot of the stuff. Often the use of 2 or 3 colours. I'm reading it on an iPad, and I think some of that lack of detail showed a bit with the backlit screen.
Okay.
But lovely atmosphere. It's an interesting one because it did engage me. It totally engaged me throughout by the writing of the investigation, but there's no action in it, which I often think is perhaps evidence of an ill-written action comic, but also something that's written for a trade.
Okay.
Right. But it kept me in this case. It kept me going because the procedural investigation revelation through the script and the story was interesting enough to carry me on. But I think if it was me, or if I think if it was dealt with by other companies or other editors or other writers, there's going to be a gunfight in issue 2. There's going to be some violence in issue 2. Talking heads isn't enough to carry a book through 6 issues, or whatever it's going to be. Is it there's these 3 things I've started applying to things. Is it groundbreaking? No, not so ever. It's a police procedural. Is it well made? Yes. And is it readable? And is it professional? Yes. So it's got 2 out of the 3 there, which I think is important for a book. I'm probably I'll read it on. It's on Global Comics. It's dropped day on Global Comics, so it's quite a good one. But initially, I was completely drawn in by the cover by Panosian. There's a twist at the end which shows in shadow the character. It clearly is meant to be the character, because the main character's got this sort of long white hair and a beard, and you see just the hint of this long white hair hiding in the darkness in a room. So in the last page of the comic,
right? Okay,
yeah. So interesting kink in a story there. I'm not sure. It's such a striking image. I reckon they went, we got to go with this, guys, because this will be what will sell the comic. But in a way, it's kind of counterproductive to this rolling out of this story and the mysteries within the story.
That's a shame, yeah.
But good.
That's a shame.
Sanction issue 1. There you go.
Man, yeah, the Panosian cover on that is fucking gold. But yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a portrait from an old, the background in an old Soviet palace or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's got a saber on his waist or something.
Yeah. He's an artist who can do just a single character cover.
Yeah.
And sometimes a single character cover can look a little boring, just dull. But there's something about the energy, the atmosphere. He brings atmosphere to it.
The face has such personality in it as well. Yeah.
That Dick Tracy one. Fuck.
Another one.
Yeah. And
I hope he's getting big bucks for it.
Yeah. He also knows his Conan. Back to that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we know our comics somewhat. And try
our best.
I think I know that you lovely listeners enjoyed this episode. We hope you did anyway. We had a lot of fun this week talking about comics. Feel energized about comics as always. And if there's anything you want us to talk about on upcoming episodes or any comic festivals, I mean, seriously, sometimes we just come across these things and we shout them out on the show. But if you know about any little comic events, anything, let us know about it.
Let us know, and we'll talk about it.
No matter how big or small they are or where they're happening, if you just want to give them a shout out in your local area, and this is worldwide as well, wherever you are in the world, let us know and we'll shout it out. And there's several ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us, awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. You can catch us on the social media on X or /Twitter @TheAwesomePod. On Instagram, we're @AwesomeComicsPod. And on the social media, we'll be just retweeting comics positivity, good art, just sharing the love of comics, because that's what this show's all about. And thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen on Apple, you know the deal by now. Say something nice about us. Leave a review. Helps get the word out about the show and everything that we talk about on a weekly basis. So drop us a little comment or something. Just tell your nan. I don't know.
I'll tell her.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what. If you tell your nan, I'll promise that Tony will go nowhere near her. And if you listen to us on Spotify, leave a comment or a review. Other networks like Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. God help me. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the Pod Network. If you're harvesting a little brown pickle, why not do so with a comic in your hand?
Once again, truly stirring stuff.
Or that bloke looks like he's got a Fray Bentos for a face.
I might have to put some outtakes in this week because we were laughing a lot about pies. Anyway, thank you for joining us. And where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
NeverOnAnything.com. A lovely little chat with... We're doing a little series of chats with collaborators. Lovely little chat with Ian Ashcroft and Cliff Cumber this week. So
I've not listened to that yet, so I look forward to that. I'll do that this week.
Got a lot of really nice messages about that. Yeah, they were good, very revealing. They gave it up.
That was a video.
That's for you guys.
Okay. On the OF.
We should get fucking secondary sponsorship from OnlyFans amount of times.
Yeah. Speaking of sexual content, where can people find you online, Dan?
Find me on Twitter X.
What face did he just do?
At Vanguard Comic. You can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Yes, you should. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You can follow me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you once again to our lovely guest, Matthew Schofield, this week.
Cheers, Matt.
Go check out his comic. Go check out his Kickstarter, and join us back here next week, where we're just going to be having a lot of fun and doing a little catching up on some reading that we've been.
Yes. Yeah, I've got the note of it here. We've
been challenged.
Have you done yours yet, by the way?
I've started.
Yeah.
Have you done all yours?
I've got a good chunk. I haven't done all
of it.
Why
are we not talking about it? You don't text me.
Because
sorry.
Oh, right, yeah. Well,
I've been badgering you around that.
We'll be talking about it a lot next week.
We'll have a good rabbit about it next week.
A catch up on our reading challenge. So that's more to look forward to.
Rabbit.
God, from Chas and Dave and myself. No, no, and some exciting guests in the future as well. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. God, well, that was quite.
Oh, that's a new one.
That's a new one, isn't it? I don't know where that came from. Must have been something I ate. But wherever you are in the world, have a brilliant week. Keep reading loads of comics you like and making lots of comics that you love. And when you do finish those comics, tell us about them because we want to read them. And from Dan, Tony, and myself in the ACP HQ, stay. Actually, I can never remember the last bit. What should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
What's happening with him today?
I was a bit slow on the uptake there.
I don't know, but he waved.
That's very casual.
Yeah.
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome. Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Engorged. That was good, Dan.
Let's roll. Fucking hell, we're the Transformers now.
That is fucking. Why did?
Was that? Did you have that ready, or did you just think?
I thought that about 30 seconds ago, and I was like,
"Gotta say it."
And you just sat. You just sat on that. How you
holding on to it? That must have built up quite a lot of wind inside you, I think.
Pulled the grenade, and I was holding on to like the little thing it pips off, and I was like, "Come on." And then chucked in.
I've had to lay off hot food, but I miss it because I'll put
spicy food.
You do not care for your anus, though, do you?
No, I put toilet roll in the fridge every night just in case. But but I can't have it at the moment, so I'm fucking gagging just to have a bit of fucking Tabasco on something, you know.
Wow. I always remember when we was at Thought Bubble when you said to that you threw the gauntlet down.
That one in the Indian,
How was he like, mate?
Make it as hot as you like.
Yeah.
And then I went, oh no, you're going to pull my trousers down.
No. Just walked into the kitchen. It's like, it's time.
We're fucking him.
The time's come.
We finally killed someone.
Yeah.
Someone tonight will die.
As soon as they bring the dish out of the kitchen, people start having an allergic reaction. Kind of like
people are fainting as you walk past tables.
Fucking Sarah Connor from T2.
I'm eating it and going, no, it's fine. Literally, molten lava is pouring out my arse at the table.
Tony, you seem to be burning your way to the centre of the earth.
This is fine. This is fine.
This is fine. As he's lowering in his seat, he's melting through the leather.
Tom's face is melting next to me, where he's like...
You look like a geezer in Robocop. It's like melted.
He looks like fucking Two-Face.
I've got some in my eye.
Whoever was behind looks like Dark.
This Geiger counter's going off fucking 5 miles away.
Got voted as like UK sexiest man by someone recently.
No.
Yeah.
Mentals.
Yeah. Anyone? I don't know. Why would you want to fuck a pork pie?
Yeah. Frey Bentos face.
Yeah. I came up with a joke with. I was going to tell it before we went on our Viper gag for issue 3.
Write that one down.
Frey Bento's face.
Oh, who did his makeup? Frey Bentos.
Frey Bentos.
You can cook those pies in the tins, you know.
Yeah.
It sells itself. Anyway.